I hope you're ready for some unindoctrination, because we've got it coming to you wall to wall and treetop tall. It's Friday night. That must mean it's late night in the heartland. That must mean it's another visit from John Lamb Lash. John Lamb Lash is one of the great, if not the greatest, Gnostic scholar that we have left with us today. But not many of you people know that he's one of the early and deepest thinkers on the Mandela-effect. Now, usually this show's about what I think, and of course that's based on now over 40 years of experience across the spiritual spectrum. But tonight, we want to find out what one of the great thinkers of our time believes concerning this effect. So, John, welcome to the channel. Let's talk about the Mandela effect.
Indeed, let's do. It was a massive phenomenon. I think you would agree on that.
Absolutely.
And it built in a wave. I actually came into it in 2016, and I developed my talks on it the following year at the time when the wave was peaking. So I rode in on the crest of the wave, you could say, and it was quite an experience for me. So shall I tell you how I got into it?
Yeah, please do, because I got into it kicking and screaming. George Norrie actually kind of put me onto it and said, hey, come back and do a show. So I reluctantly looked at it. So and wound up at least writing a book on it. That doesn't mean I knew anything, but I at least learned some things. So, John, please share with us what you found, and maybe someday we'll compare and contrast our notes and findings on it together.
Well, I believe it would be helpful to listeners to know that starting in 2003, I began to investigate how to communicate with the intelligence of the Earth in a systematic and methodical way. And, of course, it's quite common for some people to say, Mother Earth, nature, she speaks to me, and so forth and so on. But I'm not talking about a vague kind of possibly telepathic connection with the Mother Earth. I'm talking about a methodical manner of reaching her, communicating, confirming that the communication is true, confirming the source, and so on. So I had been working on that along Gnostic lines since 2003, and since 2008, I was teaching what I had learned and showing other people how to make the same connection. And it was due to that background work that in 2016, when I encountered the Mandela effect, I was able to interpret it because I had a long background of over a dozen years working in this field. So I had seen suggestions come up in my subs. They started to come up at the beginning of the year, Mandela effect, Mandela effect, and I never looked at any of them until June of 2016. And the minute I clicked on the first ever video regarding the Mandela effect, I would say that I knew within 2 minutes what it was, based on coming from this previous body of experience. It's really important for listeners to know that's the way it came to me. I had prepared myself to comprehend what it was the moment it appeared. So I knew what I was investigating, and my situation was typical of anyone investigating in a scientific manner. You begin with an hypothesis. I had my hypothesis in 2 minutes after looking at the first Mandela effect. But then I had to prove my hypothesis. That's what they call QED, what is to be demonstrated. And so then I spent from June that year until February of 2017 investigating and working out the research. And then in February of 2017, from February through October, I presented the whole enchilada. I did that in about 70 talks on the internet, so we're talking about 80 or 90 hours. And I also provided text to back it up, to back up my research, the text that I accumulated during that time amounts to about a 200-page book. So that's the summary of my work on the Mandela effect.
Well, that's fascinating, John. It makes me even more anxious to hear what is the result of all of that research and contemplation. Let us have it.
Well, I'll tell you how I laid out my investigation in order to prove my hypothesis. Or shall I just tell you my hypothesis in the first place? That would be a fun place to start.
It would be.
As soon as I detected this phenomenon, I was certain that it was proof that the intelligence of the Earth itself, the living intelligence of the Earth Mother, that entity, the body of the planet, was actually hacking into human intelligence.
Wow.
And so I called it the Mother Hack.
Wow. Well, John, I knew that you would have something that I've never considered before, and I'm not disappointed, and we just got started.
So we're on a roll. Let's see if we can keep it up. So the Mother Hack, what is the Mother Hack? Well, I ascertained that the living intelligence of the Earth, which is capable of communicating in a specific and provable way to human subjects, was taking a huge leap in communication, and that she was actually hacking into an archonic system, the internet, and she was planting clues and signals in that system for people to notice, to bring wider attention to the fact that they could communicate with her.
Wow.
It was an outreach project. You see?
I do. I'm enthralled.
So I said, how on earth am I ever going to prove this? How on earth am I ever going to substantiate my hypothesis? So I set out extremely methodically. And the first thing I did when I began to talk about it in February of 2017, that's when I created Mandela Effect Decoded, the YouTube channel, was that I said, look, I'm going to do this systematically, scientifically. And here are 4 papers that are explaining my methodology. So one of those papers explained that I was going to take the items of the Mandela effect, or attributed to it, on an item-by-item basis. I was going to look at each individual one of them. And in total, I think I covered about 85 instances.
Wow.
Yeah. And I made a point that I was going to set up the investigation with certain parameters and protocols. And I was going to determine, first of all, which effects were genuine and which were spurious, which were not credible. And I put a great deal of effort into that distinction, okay? Because some Mandela effects were really wild and unsubstantiated. I was only interested in those that I could substantiate. So I set it up that way. Then I established my decoding protocols, I call them. And the primary protocol I just mentioned. How can you tell a genuine effect if this is really a signal coming into the field of the human mind through the internet of a supernatural agency, which I have identified? How can you tell which are the genuine signals coming from that agency and which are merely the result of speculation and confusion? There were a lot of alleged Mandela effects that I found to be not genuine. And I based the criterion of genuine on one very simple feature: residuals. The term residuals was used in the community at that time.
Right.
And the residuals meant that if you had a case like Interview with a Vampire, Interview with the Vampire, there were 2 cases. There were 2 different memories of the title of that book and film. Well, the current memory, what I call the current memory, is the one that everyone or most people appear to remember now, which was Interview with the Vampire. But I didn't remember that. I remembered Interview with a Vampire. And so
I do too, John.
Yeah,
I
and
do
so did
too.
many
That's
others.
my memory. A vampire.
Right. And so we had to go back then and find if there was any solid residual evidence that it had been a vampire and not the vampire. And there was residual evidence.
Wow.
There was evidence on book covers. There was evidence on Oscar presentations where someone named the film as competing in the Oscars and they said, a vampire. So over and over again, I said, I'm not going to consider any alleged Mandela effects unless there is solid residual evidence of them. Okay? Then I explained how I broke down all the Mandela effects that were being discussed at that time into different categories. And here were the categories. Film and TV dialogue. Things that people said or didn't say. Movie book titles, like the one we just mentioned, right?
Right.
A very outstanding Mandela effect. Song lyrics. People were claiming that song lyrics changed. Well, I wanted to see if I could find proof that there was evidence of the previous song lyric compared to what is considered today to be the standard or remembered song lyric, okay? Celebrity names. Was it Sally Field or Sally Fields? Right? Product names of Looney Tunes or Fruit Loops, things like this. How was Looney Tunes spelled? And things like this. Corporation logos. I'll get back to that in a moment. And then there were other cases which I didn't investigate so much because there was an enormous wealth of material at the time. As I said, the phenomenon was peaking when I came on board. So geographical changes, changes in maps, anatomical changes. The heart had moved from the left side of the body to more to the center. Do you remember that one?
I do remember that one.
Yeah. Strange animals appearing, sharks appearing that had anatomy that had never been investigated before, certain astronomical events, and last but not least, biblical text.
Right.
So those were my categories, and I couldn't possibly cover all those categories. So I concentrated on the ones where I was confident of finding residuals. Because without a residual, there is no genuine case to investigate. Then I really got hit between the eyes in the first week that I started to investigate, because I saw that there was one category of Mandela effect that was outstanding above all others. And it concerned the change in the emblems of cars.
Ah.
The emblems, right?
Yes.
So you have on your car an emblem that marks the manufacturer of your car. And it so happened that in the front of all the incidents of the Mandela effect, it appeared that there were two outstanding cases. People were saying, look at the Volkswagen emblem. I don't remember it being that way. I don't remember it having a gap between the V above and the double V below. That was my memory. I don't remember it having a gap. But other people only remembered it having a gap, which is the way that you see it today. And then the other one was the Ford logo. Now the Ford logo imitates the handwriting or signature of Henry Ford. And apparently, when he crossed the F, like you cross the T, he just made a stroke across the F. That is the Ford emblem that I remember. But now, everywhere you look in the world, the Ford cross, the little line that crosses the F, has a pigtail in it. It has a little curl in it. It's not just a bar or stroke. So I thought, wait just a minute here. Holy moly. we're not talking about some kind of manipulation of the internet where somebody or some agency hacked into the internet in a way, changed the information, rewrote the data. We're talking about solid steel and iron material emblems.
Now, John, are you telling me that you and other people remember that the Ford logo did not have that little curly Q at the end of it? It was just a straight stroke across the F?
That's what I remember.
Wow. Now that I don't remember. That's fascinating to me.
So I thought, wow, this is something, because this implies that whatever bizarre or occult agency might be behind the Mandela effect is capable of inducing changes in iron and steel. And so I went looking for residuals, and I found them. There were people who sent in photographs of engine blocks of Fords that had the Ford name printed on it without the pigtail in the signature.
Wow.
Solid residual evidence. Likewise, there were people who were turning up residual evidence of Volkswagen emblems that they actually possessed, or that they had photographs of, or that they found glimpses of in films in which there was no gap. Now I thought, this is heavy-duty shit, man. How can this be? Right?
Absolutely. And John, it's interesting. I lived in Germany for 3 years back in the 80s, and I can remember the VW logos that I saw in Germany, no gap.
That's right, no gap. But now if you go around car lots and you look at Volkswagens, they all have gaps.
Yeah, wow.
What kind of agency could have done that? So I started to look at what I call the Ford VW cluster, and I put it down on a page as if you were putting two pieces of a jigsaw puzzle together. And then I built a cluster of other clues around that central pair. And when I was investigating it, I realized, first of all, I thought, well, wait a minute. If someone is signaling through this effect, they could change the emblems of many different brands of cars.
Right.
Why would they choose these two?
Oh, boy.
You see where I'm going?
I don't know if you're going where I'm thinking, but is there a reason that maybe those two logos were affected when you have the connection, very strong philosophical, and maybe even a having met connection between the two men that are associated with those logos and the creation of them?
Well, as far as I know, they didn't meet, Jeffrey, but they certainly knew of each other, and they, one of them had the picture of the other on his wall.
He did.
One of them was rewarded a Medal of Honor by the other. They were both featured as Man of the Year in Time magazine in the 1930s, and they both shared one very deep common interest.
Absolutely.
And one very deep common conviction. They shared the conviction that there was an evil cabal operating on this planet through politics, through academia, through all the institutions of society, and they were both intent upon exposing that evil cabal and opposing it. Right?
John, you have just caused my spirits to soar just in a few minutes, because if, in fact, you're right, and the Mother Hack, one of the leading features of the Mother Hack featured those two guys, I would extrapolate, I know it's your time, but I'm extrapolating that the Mother Hack must have wanted us to have our attention drawn to the things that these two guys were trying to tell us and warn us about.
Exactly.
Damn, that's amazing. Please keep going. I'll try to shut up.
Right. One element of the Mandela effect was a warning. It was a warning us about something. So I started with the Ford VW duo of puzzle pieces. And then I looked at other Mandela effects, and once I had determined that they were genuine and I examined them, I found that they also resonated or correlated to that same warning.
Wow.
For instance, I noticed...
Please do tell.
Well, I noticed, first of all, I have to tell you this because this is the most wonderful part. The word logo, L-O-G-O, we know what that means.
Yes.
But what is the plural of the word logo?
Logos.
And what is the logos?
Logos is the revealed word, knowledge.
Right. In Christian theology, logos is that, but in Gnostic theology, logos is the planetary logos.
It is, isn't it? It's the planetary knowledge. Wow. Logos defined in Gnostic terms is the mind of the planet. Is that true?
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
And so by the fact that there were two logos making up the word logos or logos told me that I was on the right track when I was identifying the source as the mind of the planet itself.
Wow.
Yes. It was quite a thrill. So then I noticed that there was this German thing going on. For instance, there were allusions to Germany and Germans. For instance, there was one Mandela effect. It was about the Hass avocado. Was it spelled H-A-A-S or H-A-S-S?
Yes.
Now, I remember it spelled H-A-A-S, and I bought many Hass avocados in the health food store. But wait a minute. Just look at those two clues for a moment. By the way, I'm going to invite you to enjoy the fact that this hack was playful and mischievous.
One might even say audacious, John.
It was very audacious, but it was also playful with spelling. Spelling is casting a spell. Spelling is witchcraft. She was using, at the aeonic level, her form of witchcraft, which is benevolent and playful because that is how she is as a goddess. So look at H-A-S-S, Haas, or Haas, H-A-A-S. What does that resonate? Well, first of all, S-S is in the other spelling.
Yes.
SS is a German Q. Right?
Yep.
And the word Hass in German means hate. Who have we been told to hate more than anyone else in the world?
The Germans.
The Germans, right? So then it went on, and I built up what I call a super cluster.
John, let me just interject this too. I'm sure you thought of it, but you know, I spoke German almost fluently for a while, and I didn't see that I didn't see that part, which is amazing. But the German word for house is only one word off of both of those variant spellings of the avocado.
That's right. And what
so
is
the
our
home of it is Germany, H-A-U-S.
That's right. And what is the house? The house of humanity is the earth.
It is.
Okay? So she was punning. She was playing with words and phonemes. There was another Mandela effect that took people, blew them completely away, which was the E.T. one. E.T. phone home. You know, from the film by Steven Spielberg. By the way, Spielberg came up a lot in the Mandela effects. You could say that the warning was pointing to Spielberg also.
So Spielberg as perhaps a placeholder for some group that maybe we could theorize that, possibly.
Well, Spielberg as a propagandist. He not only made propaganda films about ETs, and there you have the ET UFO connection of Gnosticism, but he also made propaganda films about the Germans and about the Holy Grail. So,
man, the whole thing's right there.
The whole thing is right there.
Wow.
So when I saw this ET clue, when it said ET, phone home, or home phone. Well, what is a homophone? Well, a homophone is a word that sounds just like something different, like a bar is a homophone. It's something that you strike someone with, or it's a place you go to drink.
Right.
So it cued me that she was playing with homophones, playing with spelling, and you had to be clever and playful in order to get what she was doing in transmitting her message. Okay?
Absolutely fascinating. We're talking with John Lamb Lash. We are discussing the Mandela effect. And I already feel embarrassed for the silly little book that I wrote about it. This is so deep and in depth. And yet there's a little grain of truth that I did manage to stumble across, I think. And I'm enjoying watching you and listening to you flesh it out. John Lamb Lash, please continue.
I'll give you a couple of other stunning examples. I'm only talking now about the first supercluster. I detected 3 superclusters, 3 distinct messages coming through the Mandela effect, which were constellated in dozens and dozens of clues, which all referred to each other and worked together coherently to present the message. So, in the Ford VW supercluster, there was a warning about master race theory and genocide. Where did that come from? Well, there was a reference to the film Thunderball. No, the reference to the film Moonraker. The James Bond film.
James Bond.
And that had to do with the guy who had the braces. He had the metal braces. And then there was the girl who had the braces. But in some versions of the film, she didn't have the braces. Again, this is a metallic substitution.
Oh, it is.
This is very, very seriously getting into the recognition of an agency that can spontaneously change matter. Now, who would that be? Who would that be in Gnostic terms? It's obviously the Aeonic Mother herself. You are living in her material body. She changes matter constantly. She can control and manipulate matter. So, in that film, Moonraker, if you go and read the plot, it was all about an attempt of an evil villain to implement a eugenics genocidal program upon the earth. That
Amazing.
Was the plot of Moonraker.
It was. Okay. I remember the movie.
So there are several clues relating to Moonraker, but here's one that you're really going to love. When I was a kid, I used to watch I Love Lucy. Now, that's a reference to the second supercluster, which is the Lucy supercluster. I'll get to that in a moment.
This is my big one, John, that you're about to talk about. This is my big one.
Okay, Lucy Lucifer, all that jazz. I Love Lucy. And she's got some splaining to do.
I know.
Well, I
heard him say it 100 times, John.
Right. But you know what the Mandela effect said?
He didn't
say
it.
Everyone who watched that show thought that her husband, Desi Arnaz, said, Lucy, you've got some splaining to do. But when they went back to try to find the show or episode where she said that, she never said it. But she's saying it in the Mandela effect.
She's doing the splaining.
She's doing the splaining. That's right.
And you know what came to my mind just a minute? I think this was early 80s. Maybe it's too early, but you remember the Madonna song, We're Living in a Material World and I'm a Material Girl?
Yes.
Just an interesting little throw in there.
Madonna, as far as I know, didn't come into the Mandela effect, but there are many clues that I missed. I only managed to cover about 85 of the specific instances I'm giving you now, but get this one. Hold on to your seat. I watched the show, and the star of the show was Lucille Ball.
Right.
Gnostics today, in the living Gnosis today, you encountered the teaching that says that the earth is a luminous body, and it emanates something called the organic light. And this is provable and testable. This is not New Age make-believe. So, if the Earth is a radiant body, then it is a Lucille ball.
Oh, my.
But it gets better. What was her last name? Now, here I'm going to test you on your memory. What was her last name? What was her husband's name? Desi?
Ricardo, right?
No, Desi.
Oh, Desi Arnaz.
No, that's the Mandela effect. If you now look, it's Desi Arnaz.
No.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
So you have two effects. The one I remember, Desi Arnaz, and the one that you find today, if you go back and you look at clips, it says Desi Arnaz. It was never Desi Arnaz. Are you kidding me?
No, it wasn't.
This is so screaming in your face. But decode it. What is it screaming? Well, look at the name Arnaz, which is typical of Spanish.
Yep.
And he was Cuban, right?
Mm-hmm.
Martinez, Rodriguez, it makes sense on the basis of evidence that his name would have been Arnaz. Okay? But look at the second part of the name, Nez. She plays tropes in different languages. What is Nez? Well, it's the French word for nose.
Oh.
Right?
I'm going to take your word for that one because I don't know, but I know that you wouldn't steer me wrong on that.
N-E-Z, a pince nez is the glasses that pinch on your nose.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Also, it's nose, and there's another play on words, nose versus nose.
Well, nose or nez, hold on, nez versus naz. Yes, indeed.
Wow.
She's saying it's nez, and we're not talking about the Gnostic nose here. We're talking about the other nose.
Yes.
What ethnic group in the entire world? Well, Italians, Sicilians have big noses. But
So
what
you
ethnic
got-
group?
Schnoz and Nas.
Right.
You got to be kidding me, John Lamb Lash. This is crazy.
This is provable evidence, and it's only the beginning. I can only give you a smattering of these things that I discovered.
And, of course, NAZ is one letter short of the racial epithet that people use for the Germans.
Right. So the signal is coded to say, look over there at the nez, the noses, and look over there at the nas, and that's the game. Get with it.
Wow.
Get with the true narrative. Right? I tell you.
You are blowing my... This is fabulous. I've never heard anything remotely like this before in all of my 40 years of playing around in this.
Okay, I'm going to very quickly jump from there. I could talk, obviously, for another hour and a half about the first supercluster. Let me go to the second supercluster. In the second supercluster, the supernatural agency behind this phenomenon brought the world's attention to herself. Lucy, the true Lucifer, is Sophia. She is the light. She is the living light of the earth. Did you know that and so that goes to Peanuts. It goes to the Peanuts cartoon series in which there were embedded certain clues, right? And particularly there's a clue from the life of Charles Schulz, where he said that when he was in the Second World War, he was in a situation where he was face-to-face with an evil you-know-what.
Yep.
And he had the option to pull the gun, pull the trigger on that evil creature. And he couldn't because he didn't have any ammo in his gun. He only had peanuts. Well, that's my joke. But
boom.
right, okay. Lucy von Pelt. Well, what is a pelt? What is very like a lamb? What has the pelt of a furry, white, soft animal? That is one way to describe the organic light.
Ooh.
The other one, you say, the other one was Berenstein Bears. People were going out of their mind over Berenstein Bears. So when I investigated Berenstein Bears, I found out that there was a phenomenon of science discovered by a man called Harris Bernstein, which was called amber mutation. Well, to those of us in the Gnostic community, we already know about the amber mutation. In other words, the signals brought up some things that were only known to people in the living Gnosis today and people who have read the Nag Hammadi. There were direct references to the Nag Hammadi in the clues. So amber stain refers to the behavior of the radiant white light of the earth. When she detects the presence of those who recognize her, she flushes into an amber color.
I did not know that, John.
Well, very few people do, but it is a fact, and it has been proven and can be experimentally reproduced.
So, John, let me just make sure I'm understanding. The organic light, which is typically opalescent, translucent, when she recognizes you recognizing her, she tends to blush and it turns a little amber?
That's exactly true.
Damn, that's amazing.
Amber stain. Berenstain bears. The Berenstain is the amber of her stain. So the second group, which I call the Lucy supercluster, which contains mirror, mirror on the wall.
Oh.
Here we go. Who's the fairest of them all? Well, the answer coming from a living Gnosis today is that the organic light is the fairest of them all, because it is the most beautiful thing that any human being can ever behold. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? That was a really big mandela-effect. And I developed that extensively. But let me go to one more, referring to the Gnostic expose of the demented Father God. The Gnostics came out and they said to the early Christians, your Jehovah, your Yahweh, is not really the true creator God. He is a demented alien, right? That was the beginning of the conversation that never happened, right?
Right.
Well, what about the Star Wars, Star Myth, Sophia, Star Goddess, Star Wars? What about the Star Wars line? Luke, I am not your father.
Ooh.
That was huge. Star Wars fans were going out of their minds over that. Did he say, I am your father? Or did he say, I am not your father? Well, that's just the fucking argument, isn't it?
It is.
Is he the Almighty Father God? No, the Gnostics say, he is not your father. Gnostic intel encoded into the Mandela effect. Finally, I will come to the close because we're just at an hour. Can we go a little bit more? No,
sure, we absolutely can. Yeah, we're about absolutely. We can go as long as you want.
Okay, the third supercluster that I investigated, picture it as a jigsaw puzzle. I start with a central piece. The central piece was interview with a vampire, interview with the vampire. Right. And then I built other clues around that because other incidences of the Mandela effect fitted into that clue and made a coherent message. It was a warning about a vampire.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, it's just amazing as you go through these things. I get it right before you bring it out, and it's powerful.
That's often the way it works when we're talking Gnostic language. It often works that way. It flashes the mind. It increases the velocity of your NLP and of your synaptic discharges when you talk real Gnostic intel.
It does.
That's that. So, obviously, this was a big factor because it's another warning. So, who are they warning us about? Okay? Well, that goes back to the name Mandela. Now, I can't explain here at length, but I went to the German dictionary as soon as I saw the name Mandela, which was connected to Nelson Mandela,
right,
whose name was given to the phenomenon. And I put in that word, in a German dictionary. And I came up with 6 different translations of that word. And every single one of them later appeared in some variation of the Mandela effect.
It did not, John. Are you kidding me?
No, I am not. I wouldn't kid you about anything this serious. I mean it. For instance, one of the names of Mandel in German was written deeply into this code. It means a set of 16 things. A set of 16 things.
Oh, there we go.
Well, in planetary Tantra and Gnostic teaching today, there are 16 frequencies emanating from the mind of the mother planet. 16 and 16 only. So I thought, here is something that I am interpreting as a signal coming from the mind of the planet. And in the signal, she confirms that that is so by giving me the clue of a set of 16. Okay?
And John, is not a Gnostic cell composed of 16 individuals as well?
That is correct, sir.
Oh.
Now, another expression for the word, another use for the word Mandel in German is that it means a sheaf, like a sheaf of grain. If you get some grain and you cut it and you tie it together, that's a sheaf. That's a Mandel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyone who knows my work, and you'll find this in Not in His Image, there's a chapter in Not in His Image called A Sheaf of Cut Wheat.
Yep.
What is the sheaf? It's on the pediment of Eleusis. It's the symbol of the source of the entheogenic psychoactive potion that they drank, based on the fermentation of rye. And so, again, pointing directly to the Gnostic mysteries. Some of the clues pointed to the Gnostic mysteries, and by extension, that points directly to her, because she is the central figure of the Gnostic mysteries. Third example, I can't go through all 6 of them. Mandel in German also refers to that organ in the body called the amygdala.
Mm.
The amygdala, shaped like an almond. Okay, by the way, the almond is the yoni, or the universal symbol of the sexual organs of the Divine Mother. So, almond, again, the signal points to its source. This is what you find in the supercluster, the Lucy supercluster. She's got some splaining to do. And she's splaining to you as you read the signal. How beautiful is that? I mean, how could you think of anything more playful and extravagant than reaching to us in that way and using a vulgar popular medium like pop songs and movie titles?
Can I suggest something that just hit my mind?
Sure.
You're talking about rock music. You're talking about musical. But when you said Mandel, I immediately went to George Friedrich Handel, who wrote Messiah.
There you go. That could be a possible lead.
Wow.
I don't know if any clues came up, but clues came up in pop music. I inquired of myself during this phenomenon. You could say, if you want to stretch it, that I inquired of her in a way.
Right.
Why are you using all this pop culture of America? And the answer is because everybody knows it, and it's the easiest way to reach people. It's in the attention of the collective. She wanted to get the attention of the collective. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And, it just shows us that it's okay, and it's even advisable if a goddess, an aeon, will do it. It's okay for us to be pragmatic as well and using things that will garner the attention of individuals towards a very important message.
Yes, that's right. We use whatever methods are instructive and practical for reaching people. So she knows, because she can read the mind of the collective and the individual, and I have proof of that. She knows that the attention of most people is focused on all this superficial crap. So she said, well, why don't I reach them where their attention is focused? And that's what she did. Pop songs, Bee Gees. How deep is your love? Well, that's a valid question. I ask you, is your love deep enough to go to the source of your life and recognize what it really is?
Wow.
How deep is your love? The lines in that song changed. The lyric used to be, do you really want to know? Do you really want to know? But the Mandela alternative is, do you really mean to learn? That's a Mandela effect in the Bee Gees lyrics.
Wow.
And the other one, of course, and this can't be lost on you, Jeffrey, is from California Dreamin'. Do you know that Mandela effect?
Refresh me.
Well, the version that many people remember is, I got down on my knees and I began to pray. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Goes into the church. I got down on my knees and I began to pray.
Okay, yep.
But what came up was residual evidence in live performances and recordings of that song where the lyrics are, I got down on my knees and I pretend to pray.
Ooh.
That was a solid hit to the so-called faith of people, telling them, are you sure your faith is real and that God and Jesus and all these things you believe in are real? Or are you just pretending?
Wow. That's a question that everybody needs to ask themselves.
Right.
And more importantly, they need to answer it.
Right. So returning to the Dracula supercluster and Mendel, there was another clue to the name Mendel. In fact, I was investigating a historical event that involves the name Mendel. And that event occurred in Russia in 1911. Now, I don't know how much I can say about this event, so I'm going to be careful.
Okay.
But let's just say that there was a child that had been abducted from a brickyard. And when they found the child, it had 13 pricks on its body, and it had been drained of blood. And this case is one of the most famous cases. It's not the only one by any means.
No.
There are many. But it was one of the most famous cases of this particular, let's say, allegation of some kind of bizarre ritual murder.
Right.
Involving white Christian children. Right?
Yep.
It was a huge scandal. It was all over the international news.
Absolutely.
And the individual who was accused of that crime was named Menachem Mendel Baylis.
Wow.
And it was called the Baylis trial. It's very, very famous. I'm surprised we're still online. Oh, we're not. We're just pre-recording.
We are.
Be prepared.
Okay.
The Baylis trial was the most famous trial ever. It had international coverage. And those who wanted to acquit him spent, get this, the equivalent in that time in rubles of $8 million.
In 1911.
In 1911, they spent $8 million to have him acquitted. And the evidence against him was, well, you can go and read the case. I've read the entire case. I've read the transcripts, the evidence of the detectives, everything. It's a remarkable case. One of the things that is most outstanding about that case was that once he was acquitted, okay, a legal precedent was set by that case, an international legal precedent which says that no such case, no such allegation can ever again be brought before a court of law on this planet. That is a fact, my friend.
How horrific.
And so the vampire clue warned about that. Because who are the vampires?
Yep.
You see? Who punctures the human body ritually? Who punctures the human body?
Yep.
In a ritual manner?
And there's you can read a lot of speculation and lore and study about Stoker's Dracula, the depiction of Dracula graphically. What was the vampire legend about?
Right.
Who is it? What ethnicity is it associated with? John Lamb Lash, I am just amazed. I never even expected anything remotely close to this. My mind is absolutely, completely blown away.
Well, that's what I'm here for. Finally, I have someone who will listen to me and let me blow their mind. It's like being back in the 60s, man.
Dude, this is one of the most incredible things I've ever heard, and it makes so much sense. I'm just sitting here, we won't get into my silly beliefs about it, but it just shows you from where, even when you can take the boy out of the church, but it's hard to get the church out of the boy. You look at something like the Mandela-effect, you're like, oh, it comes from the bad guy. And you say, well, wait a second. Maybe it comes from the good girl.
Maybe it comes from the Divine Mother.
Yeah.
Who is here with us and who can read our minds. She created our minds. You don't think she can read our minds? Wow. I know how she can read our minds. I know the specifics of how she does it, how she gets into our NLP syntax. I've studied this with other people. I'm not some lone wacko out there on the horizon making these claims. I can substantiate everything I say about Gnostic intel and our intimate bond with the mother planet. I can do that. And it's my pleasure to do that.
It's absolutely fabulous, John. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave with us to kind of tie this together as next week we get back into our conversation that never happened?
Yes, indeed. I think it would be good to inform the readers that before we did this, we came to the knowledge that we had different views about the Mandela effect. And I said, well, let's not debate them on this talk because that would go into long conversations and it wouldn't give me the chance to present my case. So you graciously have allowed me to present my case. But we can talk about it again and we can do more of a back and forth. And when we do that, let's go to scripture, okay?
Let's do it.
For instance, I'm sure you know, what was the most outrageous, and this is outrageous stuff because she's outrageous. What was the most outrageous alleged change in Scripture that showed up? And there were many.
It has to be the replacement of the lion with the lamb to the wolf with the lamb.
There you go. Now, that's another German cue.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Because what did they call the German chancellor?
That's
the
right.
wolf.
And what did the SS from Haas Avocado, what did they have as their totemic symbol? They had the wolf.
Oh, my.
Yeah. The wolf was a powerful totemic symbol in their military. Okay? So, if you go look at the Hebrew interlinear today, I don't have a Hebrew Bible, but I looked on the internet on several. Now, somebody could change it on the internet, right? This is all the speculation that was going on because it's just IT, it's just code. The word in Hebrew is Zeb, and that word means wolf. It does not mean lion. In the original Hebrew. How can that be? This was one Mandela effect that differed from many of the others in that almost everyone remembered the old effect, the lion shall lie down with the lamb. But when you go and look for it today in the Bible, in the written Bible, it doesn't say that. What is going on?
It's amazing.
And why change that? Lion, lamb, wolf. These are all clues. I just finished a 10-talk series on the lamb in the apocalypse. Mm-hmm. The lesser beast that comes out of the sea. The Lamb of God, of course, is a big meme in Christianity. The Lamb of God is there on the throne at the moment of the Last Judgment. So lion, lamb, and wolf are very powerful memes, and she activated these memes in order to bring to our attention the crucial issues that we are facing in the world today. She hacked into the internet to get our attention. That's my hypothesis.
And an amazing hypothesis it is. John, I look forward to talking with you more in the future about this specific topic and sharing a little bit about some of the conclusions that I reached on it. And I think there's a great merger. A lot of you, a little bit of me, but I think it's going to make for a much fuller understanding on everyone's part. And I thank you for being here. I know you had a really tight schedule this week. Thanks for doing this. It was tremendous. And we look forward to